and educational. So, I heard it was a great time though.
Right.
Excellent.
Okay. Next are audiences. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak about anything that is not on the agenda?
Great things.
Anyone?
Thanks.
Do you
No?
know Daniel Short?
Okay, thank you.
The other one?
No public agenda items. Anything? No other items. Administrative reports. Carol.
Okay, in your orange notes, Ann and I met, and usually when we meet to do agenda setting, we meet to plan the agendas for that particular month. But since we only have 2 months left of school, what we did is we met and we looked at, well, over the course of the entire next 2 months, what is it we would want to provide for the committee and the public in terms of information. And I met with the administrative team at one of our meetings, and we identified those things that they know that they annually report. So what I did in your notes here is I just summarized the things that we already know are on the docket. But if there's anything that you would like to add or any other information that you would like, please feel free to let us know. Now you can let Anne Marie know as well. Tonight we're going to talk about middle school 6th grade teaming. We've got budget projections. One of the things that when we went for the override, one of the questions that we heard over and over and over for people is, if we give you this money, then what's going to happen in the next several years? How do we know that the budgets are going to be within the range? Because we've been saying all along that one of the purposes of the override was to fill the gap that we had, and that we would have normal increases, but we wouldn't be facing a $1.2, $1.3 million deficit. So, that's, we want to be true to the public. We want to, do our due diligence to, as a committee and as a school district, to be able to do some advanced planning and look and say, based on some assumptions that we can make, what are those increases likely to be? Obviously, there may be some tweaks along the way, but just to give us a sense of what it will take to keep those increases to the level that the town is likely to be able to afford. So we'll do a presentation for you on that. Obviously, we're going to talk about school choice, one of our favorite topics every year. And then one of the great partnerships we have is with the Georgetown Athletic Association, the GAA. And they do a number of projects for us every year. They set up plans to help us with our fields and our grounds. And so one of the things we were talking about is seeing if they would come in and do a presentation not only of what they've accomplished this year, because they do an awful lot of it with their own time and obviously with their own money. In fact, it generally doesn't cost the district anything, and we're just really the beneficiaries of a lot of hard work. I always think it's nice to feature what they're doing so that they can be thanked publicly as well. Professional development plan. Kristen, yes, Dave, did you?
While we're on the topic of the GA, can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think my understanding is that the only thing that they don't do is help us with maintenance on the main field.
Football
the
field.
Soccer, football.
It'll help us with the aerating, seeding, and fertilizing.
They are gonna help?
That's our responsibility.
They don't do that.
They don't. That's the last 2 years. I think I've seen a real decrease in the quality of that field. I think when Peter Durkee recommended some action plans for that,
He did.
about 3 years ago. But
It was aerating. Part of our problem is we have an aerator.
But I don't think we did it.
We didn't do it last year. We didn't do it. That's one of the things that we
So I
definitely
think it got better, and then it just got worse.
Yeah.
And for the football and soccer teams, a lot of games ended up being
I
away
agree.
games.
Okay, so that's
So that's
important.
really kind of not fair.
That's important for us to make sure we do that. I agree.
Thank you.
The challenge with it, Dave, has been when to do it, because it's generally a field that's used a lot. So is it best to do it in the fall right after the football season? Is it best to do it
All
in the summer?
the spring sports and and whatever in June. I know this has been brought up.
This is a challenge, but you want to just
But
put
I
it on
think
the
there
table.
was an improvement, and that's what I don't know that when things were done or what was done.
There
but
was an improvement. I think that was the year we actually paid a company to come in and actually aerate it, because we do have an aerator, but the tines, what I've learned about it is the tines don't go down deep
Exactly.
enough.
The aerator we have is really for a lawn, just a a residential lawn type aerator.
Is it a core aerator?
No.
So
And
it's not
I think
aerator.
Peter has put us in touch with the company, and I agree with Carol that to do that field effectively, particularly because it hasn't been done for a couple of years, we really need to bring in, a contractor to come in and do it professionally.
So that needs to be on the work plan, because I agree with you, Dave. It definitely has gone downhill.
Well, I'm just raising the point because
Last year there was a lot of rescheduling. It
a
seemed
lot of the
like
games
it
that
went
the high school kids have games they only have 8 or 10 games,
And it
and
impacts the
then they have to play away because
gate fees are
because the field is unplayable.
significantly impacted by that.
So they end up with like 2 home games and 8 away games.
So
It's
you
just
get it-
really kind of a bummer.
So you get a double hit. You have to transport the kids,
Yep.
and you lose the gate fees.
And you lose gate fees. That's
Which you
right.
just-
And I concur with all of that. I just, again, need to stress that even bringing in, the proper aerating and whatever, that field has other problems that
Yeah.
long-term have to
I'm
be
aware of
addressed.
I
Like the
know that.
crest
I
and
know
all that.
Yeah.
And that's maybe something when the GAA guys come, they'll want to talk about what their interest is, in a turf field and that facility. So
Yeah, we
that'll
talked
be
a lot
something they can talk
about
about. Professional development plan, Kristen will be making that presentation. Review of we're trying to do a revised report card at Pearlie. We would want to start at Pearlie and then obviously make it consistent across the elementary grades. But right now, we're only working on the Pearlie. We're making a presentation for you on that. Obviously, every year, we're required to do student handbooks, parent-student handbooks. The principals will be coming before you with changes to the handbook. Status of summer, just what maintenance projects, we're constantly updating the committee on what we're doing with maintenance. We have had an end-of-the-year audit, an end-of-the-year, what do we call that? End-of-year report audit.
Audit,
An
right.
audit on our end-of-the-year report is probably the easiest way to
Yep.
explain it, so we'll want to talk to you about that. We have to finish the superintendent's evaluation, which I believe Ann has been collecting some things. We'll put it on the item on the as an item on the 26th. And then we will be updating you on staffing. Right now we're putting together all of our lists of positions that we need to restore and positions that we need to add, and we're going to be getting some of that out on School Spring very, very soon. And then in June, Terry's been talking to a gentleman that we actually had come out for the last year's summer retreat that the administrators did. And this gentleman works for the DESE, I believe.
No, actually, I was
Who
going to.
does he work
That's why I
for?
was confused.
Who
No,
does he
he
work
is,
for?
he is independent, but the DESE defers to him.
There you
Gentleman's name is Mark Abrahams.
Abrahams.
And, for example, the DESE no longer trains business administrators in net school spending and related issues because they defer to him. He's been doing that since the inception of the plan. And he does many other accounting trainings both for schools and municipalities. So both DOR and DESE defer to him.
So the reason that this is something that, and again, we don't have to have any of these, but if this is why we were thinking of this, is again, during the discussions on the override, there were a lot of questions about accreditation, and there were a lot of questions about school spending, and what's required and what's not, and how does it all work. So we brought Janet Allison in from NEASC to try to communicate with the public, to give them information about NEASC. And one of the things that a couple of members of the Board of Selectmen had asked, is there someone who could come in and really talk to us about how the funding for education really works and what does it all mean? And Terry had a conversation with Mark, and he said he'd be happy to do it. He does it in other communities. So that's what that would be if we want to go forward with that. The Pearlie roof and a couple of other projects. We've been working with the CPC, and one of the things we're doing is a conditions assessment. This gentleman, you saw his proposal, he brought it forward to the committee. He's now working on it, I believe, and then he'll want to come back, and the school committee will want to review that proposal. School improvement plans, always a treat every year from these schools. And then, Kristen, as you know, unfortunately, Kristen will be leaving us, but one of the things that we wanted to do before she leaves is just to have her give a status on, what's coming next in curriculum, what are the next steps and things that the district will be working on. Pembroke feasibility study, we need to be giving you a briefing on that as to where that. We could invite Michelle Smith, member, and Ellie from the building committee, yeah. But you should, kind of see where it is at this point. Summer maintenance projects is something we've been working on at the administrative level, and then homework guidelines is something that we're trying to wrap up. We've had a number of different groups that have been working on homework, and the principals are gathering information from the teachers, and we're just trying to come up with some general set of guidelines that could be followed for homework. So those are the things that we know are ready to be are going to need to be presented to you. But are there any other topics that you're interested in hearing about that I might not have mentioned?
That's a pretty thorough list.
I was going to say
It
that.
is with 4 meetings.
Yeah.
It's pretty ambitious. That's true.
Right.
Well, if something comes up, certainly let Ian or Ann know. Okay. Now, in terms of override action plan, I put this on here because, of course, I was writing these notes before I knew what the results were going to be. So I think, obviously, on behalf of all of us, that we want to thank the public for their support for the schools in the passing of the override. No, it wasn't an easy decision. There was a lot of discussion, a lot of debates, a lot of questions, and there still are a lot of questions. But one of the things that I know I said in my comments to the newspaper is, we're going to be very diligent in putting, into practice exactly what we said we needed, and we will be sure to continue to update people as to what steps we're taking specifically in putting forward that override plan. I did put in this little packet in your notes here, so if the override does not pass, these are the things we need to do. If the override does pass, these are the things that we have to do. And so I did write something in my blog about this and sort of what we've already started to do. But one of the things that I do want to just call to your attention, for the public's benefit as well, is thankfully, we will not have to be charging a bus fee this year. And we sat today, Barry and Terry and me, and what we did is we identified a set of steps and action plan for how we're going to do this in terms of when we're going to get information out to the people regarding, just the general transportation policies. Just generally, we're looking at a Q&A because that seems to be a good strategy. We will send a letter directly to the families who are eligible by both safety zone and distance with an attached registration form. There's a deadline as to when we'd like them to bring it back in a window of time. And then what will happen is they'll do what they did last year. They'll bring their registration in, they'll give it to Laura. Laura will give them a bus pass. And hopefully this summer will be a lot calmer. The last 2 summers have been very hectic and crazy with changes with bus routes and disagreements about, what those safety zones should look like. So, our goal here is to keep all of the streets and, all the decisions we made last year around the eligibility regarding streets is going to remain the same. The only change that a family might really see is if a particular area of town qualified if you went to Pearlie, but doesn't qualify if you go to Pembroke. So there may be some, that's why we're careful not to say that everybody who got a bus pass last year is getting a bus pass this year, because that could change. For example, if you look, let's use Little's Hill. In Little's Hill, if you go to Pearlie or the middle high school, you don't qualify. If you go to Pembroke, you qualify. So whatever was in place last year will be in place this year. Okay, so information will be coming up on being put up on the website. We will get those things out, and I think we'll get everything sort of wrapped up. Hopefully by the end of the school year, people will have registered, and then the goal would be to get all the bus routes out and ready by early August.
But no substantive changes.
But
to
no
what
substantive changes. No. In terms of the list, I told you we're creating staff lists now. Peter, I wonder if you would be willing to come up and talk about in the override list, there were, obviously we were maintaining most of what we had in terms of those positions. But there was a restatement of the architect and engineering program at the middle school. There was a middle school electives, which looked like, one position. And then there are 2.6 full-time equivalents for core subjects. And that would also, like, for example, what we're going to talk about tonight is just something that Peter and Mary Ellen wanted to add in terms of a new elective that would be part of a core, which would be part of the core program. So, did I pass that out? Oh,
Yeah, I think you passed it the wrong way.
I did. I passed it the wrong way. So let me just.
Oh, they're not doing this now?
No.
Okay.
That's later?
Generally, Mary Ellen's coming up next year. But generally, we wouldn't, just for Barbie and Rob's sake, generally we wouldn't bring this to you on the night of. It would be in your packet. But because of the fact that after the override, we've been busy trying to figure it out, if we waited to do this until the 26th, then Peter really delays the scheduling of his building for 3 weeks. So that's why, Ann graciously agreed to put it on the agenda, and we're talking about it tonight. Her last act. So Peter, do you want to just explain what this is, and then maybe the committee can take a
Sure.
vote for you.
Well, first of all, with that 1.0 for electives, we'd like to